I don't know, I just miss the feeling of waking up, so ready to play a game that I fell in love with, and I haven't had that feeling in a very long time. I started to dislike Fortnite once I started playing Pro.
Late 2017 was a very simple time in the world of Fortnite. Daequan had just randomly paired up with Dakotas in a fill option accidentally on squads, and started what seemed to be his career from a pivotal moment. From this fateful match, they ended up winning 27 matches in a row, which at the time was a world record. This performance definitely gave him some notoriety and even got him invited to some of the earlier invitational tournaments such as the NA Invitational, where he was extremely dominant, winning multiple of the matches. Now these tournaments were so weird. In this first game, 39 players load in, and it was basically just a battle of who the top players were at that time and the top streamers, and just putting them all against each other. There was no storm surge, there was no strategies, it was just very early primitive gameplay, which is funny to go back and watch. I can't even find any information on these tournaments to that date. The earliest ones I can find were the skirmishes, which came roughly 6 months after this. So this is really interesting to come across these tournaments because I wasn't around at this time. This was roughly 2 months into Fortnite Battle Royale being released, as it released in September of 2017. And at this time, Daequan had an incredible skill for the game, being able to drop constant over 20 elimination games in solo v squads. If you just look at the caliber of the players that he's going against, they seem to probably be worse than the bots are now in pubs. However, this just shows how truly far ahead of the game he was at the time. There are some arguments about this, but he definitely popularized the ability to use the double pump, where you would have 2 pump shotguns in your inventory, shoot one, and it would be faster to switch to the other inventory shot, shoot the next one, and then switch back. And you could apply consistent, very hard hitting damage with these shotguns using the double pump method. This became the meta so fast, even to the point that Epic had to nerf it later on to not be possible anymore. And it's not like Daequan was bad when he came to higher level tournaments at the time as well. In a lot of the tournaments at this time, he was placing around top 10, top 20th, and overall this managed to gain him around 70 to 80k earnings throughout all of this year. Now, obviously, the skirmishes were huge for earnings overall, and they had huge, insane actually prize pools, but still, he made his good bag in competitive as well. Now, Daequan was around and streaming for the majority of Chapter 1 overall, up until May 2019, where he suddenly stopped uploading. It wasn't until September, almost 5 months later, where he uploaded his next video, which was titled Where I Have Been. In this, he explained a lot of the difficulties he'd been having in his life in terms of being very ill. He said he'd had 4 collapsed lungs over the course of the time where he was streaming and playing and taking the break. He'd lost a lot of family members, and his close personal friends were getting ill, along with himself being ill as well. He'd had a very tough time, and it was a very warranted break for a guy who was grinding streams, YouTube content, and all other social medias. I can understand how difficult that can be, and given the life circumstances that he was in, this break was definitely warranted. In this video, he also explained his frustrations about gaming in general at this current moment, and that he'd really loved gaming throughout his entire career, and it had got him through some of these hard times. However, there just wasn't a game that was for him at the moment. In his own words, he wanted to play a game that he genuinely loved so badly, and he started to dislike Fortnite once he started to go pro in it. He was more of the W key style player where everyone else was camping and boxed up. On top of that, he also stated that Epic kept adding updates that lowered the skill gap of the game, and this was recorded in Chapter 1 Season X, so this was definitely at the time mentioning, mainly referring to the mechs of that season, and a lot of previous updates as well. From this point on, Daequan uploaded a couple more videos relatively spread out from after September of 2019 up until the beginning of 2020, where he seemed to have completely disappeared yet again. He was relatively quiet on social media throughout 2020 after this point. COVID was going on, and of course there was a lot of difficult life circumstances for a lot of people, but it was great to see coming towards the end of 2020 that he tweeted that he was feeling better than he has in years. And obviously a lot of the fans and the followers were very worried for him up until this point, so this was definitely a reassuring tweet to see.
A lot has been ongoing in the streaming world. That includes the silence and disappearance of 2 former very well-known and top figures, especially with the rise of Fortnite, that being TSM members, both Hamlinz and Daequan.
Word. we're back.
So they're back. But should they go back to their roots of playing Fortnite? Given the ever-increasing skill gap that the game has gone through since the entire of Chapter 2 has released, the game is completely different now. The majority of the players you come across in Arena and higher ranks now will be very, very good. And unless you're very skilled at the game, you're going to be dropping 10, 20 elimination games every single match. If you're going to play pubs, sure, you can get away with it. However, that includes another issue for them: stream snipers.
Can you stop?
The viewers that these guys would get live would be absolutely insane, and the chances of them not just being stream sniped game after game after game is extremely low. Back in Chapter 1 Season X, Daequan was already saying how he wasn't enjoying the competitive side of the game. Given the fact that there's a lot of push towards competitive right now, do I think that he would enjoy it as much, especially given he's almost lost an entire chapter of practice? Probably not as much. However, he is an extremely competitive player, as if you watched any of the documentaries or the stories on him, that's very clear. So potentially he'd be up to the challenge of getting back into it and increasing his skill to over the current level that it's at. I would worry, however, that it would turn out very similarly to how other top creators of that time have ended up. Becoming invested, putting a lot of time into it, and then noticing that they are still further behind the top tier, and then being discouraged and then moving on to other games. I would love to see him challenge, try and play again, try and do well, even if it's just in pubs, despite the fact that most pub streamers don't necessarily get as much out of it, as there isn't as much of a demand for pub streamers right now. But definitely Daequan fits the personality, he could do that extremely well. But another point on top of this is just the fact that his other videos with other games are doing so good. When you got a personality like Daequan, he was born just to be an entertainer and to entertain people all around. And honestly, a lot of his fan base don't care about which game he plays as much. If you look through his YouTube, you can see the views on his other games like Warzone and Apex Legends still slap. For most creators, there'd be a huge drop off in percentage between their main game to any other games, but with a personality like Daequan, it's clear why the viewers are there. I'm sure he's going to play a variety, but wherever he plays, I hope he enjoys it and he doesn't feel pressured into any specific game. I hope the break was good for him and for Hamlinz as well, and they come back stronger than ever. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. Peace.